Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Illinois. Good morning, teachers, administrators, staff, and members in our region and elsewhere who are here. We recognize all of the wonderful people on the front lines teaching our children and doing the best you can every day. This is Deborah Lynch, and Dr. Rasha Elhaj and I will be your moderators for today's webinar focusing on early childhood challenges and opportunities, presented by one of our favorite colleagues, Dr. Ty Giles. Before we start, just a reminder, this webinar is part of a weekly series of free webinars offered by Chicago State University, along with free CPDUs or PD clock hours for attending. A couple of housekeeping items. First, it's recommended that you view the webinar in full mode and have all other tabs or web pages closed for better viewing quality. If you encounter any technical problems, please try to troubleshoot your device or your internet connection independently. The majority of the times, the technical troubles you might encounter can be solved on your end, either through doing an audio check, which is a link in the control panel, or sometimes going out and coming back in can resolve problems. But we do not have any way of attending to those issues, especially with such a large group. We'd like to draw your attention to an important feature. If you look to your right on the control panel, you will see a couple of tabs. There's the question tab, which we will ask you to enter the questions that come up for you during the presentation, as we will have a Q&A period at the end after Dr. Giles' presentation. So we ask you to write your questions down in that space provided, and we will be reviewing those questions and sharing them with Dr. Giles in the Q&A. Please make sure your questions are sent to everyone and not private so that we can see them and share them. There's also a link to the chat. So there will be a couple of poll questions that will be open-ended. And so for those, we ask you to respond to those poll questions in the chat box, where we can see them as they come in and report on them. The session will be recorded and shared. You will receive an email from us later today with your certificate of completion, the PowerPoint presentation, and the link to the recorded webinar. Finally, at the end of the webinar, we ask you to complete an exit survey sharing your evaluation of the webinar and suggestions that you have for future subjects that you might like to see us address. And before I introduce our guest speaker, we'd also like to have a little bit of an idea of who is here. So we're going to launch a poll and ask you to tell us, who are you? I'm going to launch it right now, and if you could please indicate whether or not you're in early childhood education, early childhood special ed, if you're a gen ed teacher, a special ed teacher, or maybe you're an administrator, clinician, specialist, or paraprofessional. So we'll give everybody a couple of seconds to weigh in and let us know who's here. All right, a couple more seconds here. And we're at about 75% of our audience. So I'm going to close the poll and share it. So let's take a look at who's here. And we can see we've got about 22%, almost a quarter of our attendees are early childhood educators, either gen ed or special ed. We've got a third that are gen ed, 20% special ed, and 25% other. So welcome. That gives us a really good idea of your roles, and we are glad that you are all here. All right. Without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Ty Giles. Ty Giles came to Chicago State University with over 21 years in the field of early childhood education. She began her career as an educator on the south side of Chicago, working in Head Start and kindergarten classrooms with Chicago Public Schools. Ty completed a master's degree in early childhood education with approvals in ESL and special education. She's been a professor for many years, working in teacher education preparation programs. Also, Ty works with infants and toddlers as a developmental therapist and completed studies in infant mental health program at Erickson Institute. Ty has also worked with teachers in childcare settings and pre-K programs. In addition, she serves on several committees and works with organizations that support the advancement and welfare of teachers, young children, and their families. Ty, in her spare time, is currently pursuing coursework in counseling and children's law and policy. It's with great enthusiasm and excitement we introduce to you Dr. Ty Giles. Dr. Giles, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up and hanging out with me today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about e-learning tips for teachers, early childhood challenges and opportunities. You will hear, thank you for the invite to Dr. Lynch and Dr. El Haja. I want to tell you that you'll hear in my presentation that I'm definitely a social emotional person, an advocate for our students, as well as a person who believes in equity and justice. So just giving you a heads up. So let's go on our journey for today. So right now, if you could use one word to describe how you are feeling today, that will help me out a lot. So if you use the chat box, just go ahead and put in the one word that you would use to describe how you're feeling today. And I thought this was really important considering all that's taking place in our world right now, just kind of checking in with everyone to see how you're feeling. And we'll take a few more minutes. Or is it the question box?
It would be the chat box.
Chat box?
Everybody's doing it on the chat box, on the question box.
Everybody's doing it.
Okay. And so I don't see any of the responses, so.
All right, we will go ahead and jump in here. We've got feelings coming up here. Let's see. Here we go. Energized, exhausted, stressed, lost, great, harried, anxious, tired, confused, energized, worried, uneasy, exhausted, stressed, drained, great, disappointed, relieved, dragging, frustrated, okay, calm, tired, anxious, hopeful, emotional, overwhelmed. So you've got quite a list here, Dr. Giles. Calm, concerned, overwhelmed, emotional. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your emotions today. That's very important for me so that I can try my best to meet all of those feelings and expectations. So if you're stressed, hopefully after this presentation, we can have some de-stress moments throughout the day. And for those of you who are energized and excited, hopefully you'll feel that way after the presentation as well. So thank you for checking in. If I had to use one word to describe myself today, I would say exhausted as well. I've been doing a lot, working really hard, even though this is a vacation supposedly, but it does not feel like it. So we're going to still have great time and energy in this space today. So the first thing we want to talk about is the early years, which are the foundational years. And so I'm so glad that I know the background of the participants on the call. So the first 5 years are what we call the critical years in a child's development. And we use this term so much because of the research we found about brain development as it has impacted how we work with young children. So everything that a child sees in the first 5 years of their life, what they see, they hear, they touch, they taste, the things that they smell, it shapes their thinking, it shapes their feelings. It has a lot to do with how they move and learn and interact in this world. So the first 5 years are just so critical to a young child's brain development. And so just some quick trivia facts that I like to share with you is that Many people say the first 5 years, but believe it or not, it's the first 3 years that have the most important impact on a child's development. And then another key fact is 90% of all children's brain, 90% of a child's brain is developed by the time they're 5 years of age. So this early childhood period is so critical to what we do, and it actually just lays the foundation for all other future learning and experiences. So we talk about this foundation, and we realize that that's going to have a lot to do with that child's health, their overall happiness, their growth, their development, their learning achievement. And through their interactions with their families, in their home environments, in the schools, in the classroom with all of you, and in their community, that really impacts them. It really allows them to gain so much. And so this is essential to what we do as educators. However, young children today grow up in a society that engages technology daily. And so we have this foundation, but when I was born, we didn't have all of this technology. But now we have this new group, this new generation, and they're growing up with technology, and it's essential and it's at its core for what they're doing. So it serves more than one purpose. It provides education for our students. They learn. We have programs and platforms like ABC Mouse, Khan Academy, PBS. So technology is a form of education, but it's also a form of connection. It's how people reach out to each other. Grandparents who live in different states now can actually see their grandchildren every day. I remember growing up, we could only see Granny in the summertime. We talked to her on the phone, but we traveled to see her in the summertime. And so it allows a connection to families, and especially during this time right now, we've all been connected through technology. In addition to education and having relationships with technology, we use it as a form of entertainment. We hear the buzzwords Netflix and chill. We watch games and we play games on our phones and our iPads. And then it's also like comedy and things. So it serves this huge purpose in young children's lives as entertainment. I know as an educator, sometimes when I'm in stores, I see parents who, if they want their child to be quiet, they'll give them their iPhone temporarily just to pacify them, to get them to make it through the store so they can get out of there. So technology, our young children have become so engaged in technology. And so to me, these are all the benefits. These are positive benefits of growing up in technology, that it is a form of education, it's a way to stay connected, and it's a form of entertainment. And so those benefits can actually be opportunities. We can look at this and use this as an opportunity to educate, an opportunity to connect, and use it as a way to actually entertain our students as well. However, we have what we call challenges. So there are some true challenges to digital technology. First, it should be limited. Young children should not have that much screen time, is what we call it. 1 hour a day for children under the age, like in pre-K, they should only have like 1 hour, and for 0 to 3 should be very, very limited. But right now we see a lot of technology. And another challenge is that not all children have equal access to technology. Working with the Head Start population here in the city, we had to provide Wi-Fi hotspots and tablets to families because they did not have access to technology. So a lot of people assume that all children are connected. And another challenge that I've encountered is the responsibility for e-learning with younger children is really relying upon the adult or the primary caregivers in their lives. If the parents are not able to get the children on the computer or see that as a sense of value for them, then that will impact the child's ability to be on the computer. So as educators, I would like for you to share some of your challenges. So we're going to take about a minute or two for you to discuss in the question box Like, what are some other challenges? Those are just the three that I see a lot in the work that I do. So what are some other challenges? And we'll take about a minute to get some responses in there.
And we see family engagement and reliability, student participation, not hearing from families at all, keeping kids on task, child refuses to engage, lack of internet connection, student participation is coming up a lot. Let's see, it's going really fast. Parents who don't value education, students not participating, lack of internet, motivation, lack of internet, keeping kids on task. Student participation is coming up quite a bit. No parent participation, language barriers, parents are overwhelmed, students are sharing technology. Again, student participation and parent involvement, certainly two things coming up as a theme.
Okay. That's really good to hear, because those are some of the things that we're going to address as we try to take these challenges and turn them into opportunities. I found that as an educator, for every challenge, if we look at them in a positive way and turn those challenges into opportunities, it doesn't feel as bad. So that's going to be our focus today, is to take those challenges that we already know that exist, and we can acknowledge them and turn this into an opportunity so that we can support our students. So I kind of told you already that I'm a huge self-care, social emotional person. So in order to start with these opportunities, it all begins with you. And I can vividly remember when COVID first happened, being called and asked from Head Start agencies, what do we want to do to keep the teachers busy? And they all said professional development. And they went bananas. They sent professional development after professional development opportunities to the teachers during the first 2 weeks that they were home. And I noticed that in the messages that were going out, that there was nothing about self-care. So even though I'm going to start with you and I'm going to talk about professional development, we're going to expand this a little bit further. But in this process of providing these opportunities to our students, you are at the core of it, and you can't do that work if you're not informed. So one, you need to expand your information and learning. So I'm happy that you are here, and that I'm happy that you guys are taking advantage of the professional development opportunities that are here for you. And then it also means that you have to redo some of your thinking and engage in some of the 21st learning strategies, which we'll talk a little bit about some of those in the presentation. And then advanced technology skills as we head to the future, because if you haven't figured it out, education will now have a strong online technology component to it. I know we're going to keep the classroom, we're going to keep the face-to-face interaction, but there will always be this technology piece. So a big part of this starts with you and being open to the learning process and wanting to expand and having more opportunities to engage in professional development. But more importantly, I want to know that you are taking care of yourself. The work that we do, especially in early childhood, cannot be done if we do not take care of ourselves first. And so there's this level of self-care that I just believe that every educator at all ages, no matter what age group you work with, should have. And so we're going to do a quick poll question. And so I'm asking you, outside of your professional development, what are you doing to ensure that you are making time for you? So we have 5 choices. One is engaging in some form of exercise or yoga on a routine basis, some meditational moments, drawing in or reading for pleasure, or if you're doing nothing at all. But this is the key to actually being this amazing educator that's willing to provide these extra opportunities for our students in an online learning environment. So we're going to go ahead and give you an opportunity to participate in that poll.
And the poll is launched. About half of our participants have completed it, so we'll give it another couple seconds. All right, we're about 70% completed. Let's take a look at our results. All right, do you see them there on the screen? Looks like half engage in some kind of exercise or yoga, 20% almost meditational moments, a third drawing or reading for pleasure, another third other, and 7% of our participants at the moment aren't doing anything right now to take care of themselves.
Okay, so for everyone I'm so excited that you're doing something that's very, very important. And for my little small 7% that's doing nothing at all, I encourage you to find some way to make sure that you're doing some type of self-care. So thank you for participating in that poll. So now that we've taken care of ourselves, we know that we have to do professional development as we move further, engage in this e-learning world that we live in. We're going to take a look at those opportunities now can turn into benefits for teachers who are teaching online. So you are going to learn about relationships, scaffolding learning opportunities, and the individual context. So the challenges will turn into opportunities, and these opportunities will reap the benefits of teachers having strong relationships with their students, scaffolding their students' learning, and individualizing the context of learning for each child. So there are some really positive things that can happen. So let's make it happen. The very first thing that we can do to make it happen is view children as learners in all moments and environments. And so if you have adopted, I know a lot of programs have adopted the virtual online platform and using spaces like Zoom, GoToMeeting, and Google GroupMe. We need to see our students as learners in all moments and environments. And so even if you have them there, that is an environment. And then you want to engage young children as co-designers in their online delivery platforms, embracing their capabilities and skills as they have been born into the era of digital technologies. One of the things that if you're only doing the online virtual GroupMe for early childhood, that's probably not going to be enough. When you're dealing with the younger children, you're going to have to do some individual moments where you actually have one-on-one interactions with the child and their family. That's really, really important because you can't reach all kids in the large group, and the expectation that you will reach pre-K students and kindergarten students and first grade students in that snapshot is not going to cut it. And also you want to make sure that you're modeling a calm and caring approach to children and their families' individual context and needs to provide a stable influence and support emotional well-being, which is why I'm encouraging you to develop your own routine for your families. So one of the programs that I recently developed for the younger groups, because as a therapist, we see babies 0 to 3, and they passed a bill that we can actually do virtual therapy sessions during COVID so that we don't have to go to the child's home. But one of the things that we did was we developed a routine for the families. We said, when I call, this is what's going to happen. Can you provide that safe space in the house where it's just you, the baby, and the therapist so that we can actually do it together? So you have to kind of help the parents provide the support that they need so that the services can be done. And so, you know, when I talk about calmness and support, when you give someone structure and you give them things and you give them information, it kind of reduces anxiety and it gives the feeling of being supported. So we have to provide all of that, whether it's the whole classroom or the small one-on-one meetings. And sometimes we have parents that don't want to see you, so we have to do it over the phone. So you have to be willing to go that extra mile to do the individualized instruction as well. So we're going to keep going. We are getting there. We're getting stronger with this. So the next set of steps is that we're going to avoid to try to replicate the face-to-face learning experience directly to an online platform. And I know initially that is what we saw a lot of. We saw teachers doing the full-blown circle time over the phone on Zoom for like 30 minutes. And we're just like, that's probably not the best approach. Don't try to take your classroom that you were delivering in the building online. You have this unique opportunity to actually do some really cool pretending things and pretending opportunities that will help the young children learn. So don't replicate your old classroom. But you also want to make sure you apply inclusive practices to ensure that all children have access to learning and are actively engaged in learning. And then you want to educate young children and their families and ensure that you are following e-safety, and that's remaining safe online. You can sometimes, one of the safety features of doing online learning is that for young children, that we don't overexpose them to too much. They're still growing, so you don't want to do too much, and that's a part of the safety piece. So now we're going to take an opportunity. I'm going to do an activity really quickly. So all of you are in your own spaces and you're going to use the question chat box. I want you to just look right now in your environment and tell me how many clocks or watches that you see. And if you can type your response into the question chat box. How many clocks or watches do you see in your environment right now?
We've got an array of responses from 1 to 5 so far. Dr.
Okay. Awesome. So I had you do that just as an example of how you can make the learning experience be relevant to the actual child's environment right then and there. Instead of doing that traditional circle time, now you got their attention and they can't wait to go look and to see how many clocks in the environment and come back and tell the teacher the answer. So if I was to take this activity and expand it, I would probably do some math with it for young children and maybe do some averages, teaching them how to do some averages right there online and using their natural environment and capturing them in their moment. So let's look some more at some tips to kind of help us do this. So we're going to design learning experiences which engage children through interacting with their natural setting and then bring this learning to online and paper-based learning. So we did the online activity with the clocks. Then you could take this a step further and ask them to call a relative and ask them how many clocks and watches do they have in their whole entire house. And that could be the follow-up activity. And then they can report back to you the next day and we could do some more averages. So that's one way that you can, that's an example of how you can design learning experiences that engage the students on and offline. Another technique, which is one of our 21st century techniques, is the flipped classroom. And this is where we engage children in learning experiences and collecting information and items and experimenting with them and sharing them back through an online format and blended learning, which is a mixture of online and offline activities. So I'm just going to talk about the shared learning, the flipped classroom experiment. So basically for that concept, it's what you would do for homework. You would actually give that to the children first to explore, to experiment, to engage in it, and then come back the next day and have them present out on what they do, and then you would actually teach it. So for young children, you may say while they're on the phone, I want you to get a paper cup. And then I want you to put the cup in the freezer. We can do science this way. And you put the cup in the freezer. And I want you to tell me what time you put it in the freezer. And then tomorrow when we get back online, I want everybody to pull their cups out. That's a simple way of doing a flipped experience, learning experience, because then when the teacher talks about it, everybody sees their cups, they see their ice, and then she can explain to them what happened overnight as the water turned from a liquid into a solid. So that's one way that we can really take advantage of this online platform that we have. Also, we want to encourage children to design inquiry questions that they want to explore in their natural setting, and then either have them share it online, by phone, with their family or peers, or by post. So You can take this whole concept of how Facebook allows people to put posts. You can have young children take something that they want to learn about in their backyard or inside their house, take the picture and post it. And then you could actually have other students respond. You can do KWLs this way. There's so many different ways that you can actually encourage young children to think and explore and be fully engaged in this online learning environment. And honestly, when you look at it, if you do it this way, you kind of take some of the pressure off of you to come up with all of the ideas. And if you're really cool, you can actually take this and apply it to your state standards and to your curriculum that you're required to use, and actually show that you're meeting all of those benchmarks and outcomes for our students. Another thing that you can do as a tip is to encourage pairs of small groups of children to design a shared inquiry question. And so this could be for our second graders, third graders, and some of our first graders. You can ask them to be in groups, and so they can actually work together. And this will require family engagement and family involvement, but it can be done. And if you have paraprofessionals that can be involved, that would be helpful as well. So you can put children in small groups, just like we do in our regular classrooms. And then you can actually break the groups into small workout groups, especially if you're using a platform as Zoom. And you can have parent volunteers, and you can monitor all of this too. It's just a part of our e-safety, but you can have parent volunteers in each of the groups to kind of help facilitate some of the conversations. You can schedule regular and short online sessions, whether they can be some explicit teaching, because we know that that is always our tried and true piece. And then you can also do where children share their learning intentions, finding and learning, and which accommodate their developmental attention span. So I found that when you try to, even with the adults, when we switched to all online this semester, trying to have them stay online for over an hour was painstakingly horrible for them and for me. So they would start off, I kept saying, I need you to be engaged. I need you to look at me. I need to see your face. They started off that way, but when it got closer to an hour, they were gone. So I decided to not actually have them stay on the phone, stay on the computer for longer than an hour. So we met for an hour, we followed a routine, and then I actually put the ownership back on them. And I would give them activities that they had to actually videotape and document and provide back to me. So online sessions should be nice, regular, and short and sweet. And then we design activities that integrate online interactions with physical movement. For example, get them up, go on a scavenger hunt, do group stories, singing or music. That's one way that you're going to actually get them to really stay involved. And with so much technology at your fingertips, for my teachers who say, well, I can't sing, well, you can still play music and it'll actually go through the speakers and so the kids can actually hear it. So we can still do those rich interactive experiences with our students. And if it wasn't so early in the morning, I would have all of you sing right now. I'm just kidding. So next, we're going to think about how we can establish a consistent timetable for engaging in online platforms so that children and their families can develop a routine. In this process, we thought it would be best, and I say we, this is as a consultant, some recommendations that I provided to organizations, is to give the parents a weekly routine, and they selected from a group of activities that they wanted to do with their kids. So while the teacher met with the students weekly on the large platform for a short period of time, the parents were provided, like we would call it, like family lesson plans, and they were provided activities on the topic and the theme for the entire week. And then the parents chose the activities that they wanted to do, and then they told us, the teacher would call on the one-on-one sessions, and they would tell the teacher about the activities that they chose to do on their one-on-one time, and the teacher would document the learning experiences. So developing and providing this structure and support. Most of our parents, if you have parents that are educators, that's great, but they're also educating other students. So providing that routine, that structure for something that they haven't had to do is very, very helpful for our families. And then integrate a range of technologies available to young people, such as video, cameras and photos, voice recordings, digital drawings, and games. There's so many things. As I prepare for this presentation, there's so many apps, and that's a whole nother topic that we could talk about, like how to select the best app for your kids that are the most developmentally appropriate. There's so many things out there for you. And then provide children with the choice of activities so that they can be empowered in making decisions over the week while ensuring a balance of activities across curriculum learning areas. For example, using a rubric to self-monitor their progress. And so if you gave them a weekly rubric, a child can literally check off, I did this, I did this. So the teacher does a little bit more on the planning side, but the outcomes of what happened for you, instead of you holding on to this ownership of just like, I have to teach, you've put the ownership of the learning back on the child and the family. And I think you'll get more parent participation when it doesn't feel like they're doing homework. It's more engaging. Like, it's kind of hard for a parent to look at a kid and say, Mom, I got to take a picture. Let me take a picture. I need to send it to my teacher. And they'll probably get a little bit more excited. So this is one way that you can get the children engaged. So, well, why do we do all of this? Why is this so important? Once again, it's about building the relationships. I have learned this, and ever since I've learned it, I've never stopped saying it. All learning takes place in a context of a relationship. Whether that relationship is positive or negative, learning takes place in it, and we learn something from the connections that we have with the people. And now that we already know that the early years is central for young children to move from their egocentric piece to independence, and we need them to engage and connect with their peers. So building on these opportunities, which is our scaffolding piece, to continue social connectedness during this period of social isolation is so critical. So I just want to ask a question. How do you guys feel about all learning takes place in the context of a relationship? Whether it's positive or negative, learning is going to happen when you're in a relationship. So just asking, how many of you have heard that terminology before, that learning takes place in the context of a relationship? And what does that mean for you? And you can put that in the question box.
Okay, let's see what we've got here. So let's see, first time hearing that. I already heard that, 100% agree. Let's see, they're going fast and furious here. First time hearing that. Leadership, agree. First time, agree. Lots and lots of good feedback here. Lots of agreement, agree. Many people have said that's the first time they've heard it. A couple people have said they've heard it before. Right, and let's see, absolutely agree. They're going fast and furious here. It's so true. With high school students, absolutely. I see this with my own students and my own children. I have not heard that, but I totally agree. Families need to feel safe. I agree. You need student buy-in.
Yep.
First time hearing that. We all need to feel connected. It helps to have communication. So that's just a little flavoring of the many comments that are coming in, Dr. Giles.
Awesome. So since there was a few people that had never heard the terminology before, the first relationship that most of us have is with our primary caregiver. And so we learn so much, whether it's positive or negative, from that first relationship that we have, and it shapes us. And so knowing that that's the first relationship that they have, the ones that we develop as we get older with our teachers. You ever had that teacher that pulled everything out of you when you were growing up? You're like, God, I didn't even know they pushed you to believe in yourself. Those are the teachers that you really remember. And you remember the relationship and you love them. And those people became your favorite teachers. I think all of us have that, my favorite teacher story, because you learned from them, they pushed you, and they gave you what you needed. And so that became a basis for forming great relationships. So always remember that, and making sure that you connect with your families, which is why the individualized context piece is so critical. So let's do it now. If you're not using online platforms such as Google Classroom or Zoom, you might want to start doing that and provide opportunities for whole class interactions as well as breakout rooms. We kind of talked about this already, but breakout rooms can be used for both formal group tasks and informal conversations. They can be used for chat forums and allow children to work on the same documents through Google Docs. Meanwhile, it can be used to promote connectedness and share a goal. And me, not a fan of Google Docs, but over this pandemic, I've had to embrace it because I'm working with colleagues and we're working on grants, and it has been truly a godsend. We literally are on the phone and we're talking and we're writing, and you can see it happen in real time. So Google Docs is a good thing. See how I had to open my mindset and open up to some of the new technology as well. So you can use that, especially for your older kids, your third grade and your second graders. Once again, implement a buddy system through online platforms, through post and by phone. Once again, paraprofessionals and school support can help, and parents can help. You know, you have those parent volunteers who love to be engaged. This is one way that you can have them. Don't leave the parents out there without structure, though. Provide them with information so that they can successfully help in one of the platforms. And then the most important part for me is allow for fun and interaction with adult supervision. Set learning tasks that engage children in interviewing or seeking information from family and friends, and help them keep connected with significant others outside of their classroom peers. So this is really, really critical. And I say this because most of us, we're probably stressed and don't really, some people are feeling stressful and some people say that they're not feeling stressful, but this is a time where being connected to others and feeling a part of a group when you're socially isolated is really important, whether you believe it or not. So whatever form you use to connect with people, you want to make sure that your students have that opportunity as well. And encouraging it and using it inside of assignments and activities is really important. And as we get closer to the end of the semester, like some of your summer activities could be, you know, how we always give those homework packets or those summer packets out. Some of this could be like, you know, we've gotten rid of some of the old school things like pen pal, but having like a digital pen pal, and they can do things over the summer that keeps the connectedness going is really important. So some technology tools to use. Videos. I know that this whole world has turned into TikTok and YouTube, and there's so many privacy features now that you can actually do it. You can have your children make videos. You don't have to make them open and public to everyone to see. They can be private. That's a really cool thing to use for you as a teacher. You can have students make videos doing certain activities, and they could send it to you, and it's really private. Like they will send you a link that only you can see as the teacher, and so it can't be used over and over again. It's only just one-time link for you to watch it, and it will expire. Because that's how I did with my students this semester at the university. I asked them to teach certain things, and they did those through YouTube and made a private link just so that I can do it. And then also TikTok is what the younger kids are using. It's really popular with the dancing. So if you want to encourage physical activity and physical movement, that could be something that you could do, because we're responsible for that part of their development as well. Cameras are great. They are on most cell phones. So that's one way that you can actually engage students. Like I said, charting progress. They can take pictures of, if you ask them to do something, they can take pictures weekly or over a period of time and show a story. And if you look at that, that's actually a form of research and assessment, using pictures to document things. iPads and all of the apps and tablets, there's Nooks and Kindles and other pieces. And really, they really cool now is they have ebooks that you can utilize for young children. And if you don't have access to like an ebook collection, there are some companies that actually charge for the digital books. But believe it or not, there are on YouTube, there are lots of books that are well read and done by students and done by other folks for ebooks, and they have the pictures, and you can actually use those links. Those links are public. For the ones that are public, you can use them and send them to your students, and they could actually do ebooks right now, especially since a lot of our libraries are still closed and don't have full access to them. We have tons of ebooks that are available. And so I promised that we would talk about the homeschool connection piece. And this is because our children are so precious, and teachers play such a significant role in working with parents and caregivers in nurturing the next generation. I just have to keep saying that the early years are the foundational years, and they lay this solid foundation that we need. And so during this pandemic, we have to work together with the parents and caregivers in continuing to provide a calm and reassuring environment, and responding to children as they question and learn about the current situation is critical. And then many families are contributing to the good society in so many ways, and engaging our children in these models of selflessness, shared responsibilities, and acts of kindness would be the richest learning experiences that our children could engage and promote genuine citizenship qualities. And working in partnership has never been more important than during this COVID-19 period, with teachers, paraprofessionals, parents, and caregivers being responsive and empathetic to the diversity of individual contexts. So here's some, we have our final reflections, and then we'll open up for question and answers, but just some final reflections. How are you staying connected to students and providing rich learning experiences to support their learning? And how does this work for students who don't have equitable access to resources and technology? And so I know, Deb, this is a poll question, correct?
Yes, I'm launching the poll on question 1. Your second question, how does this work for students who don't have equitable access? That's not in the poll, but maybe we can make that a second commentary in the question. But the poll's in progress right now. And we've got about half in. We'll give it another couple seconds. And we can see virtual conferences is winning at the moment. And we're almost at 70%. Let's take a look and see what we have. Close the poll and share it. And you can see at the moment, 52% indicated virtual conferencing, 7% telephone, 21% communicating with parents, 13% sending written print activities, and 8% other. So maybe if you want to talk about this, and then we can make this your second question an open-ended one.
All right, so here we are using our virtual conferences, and I see that we're sending the written activities, communicating with parents is good. So we're you know, kind of like some of the things we talked about in the conversation, is including those different activities to engage the students a little bit more outside of the written activities. All right, so the second question is, how does this work for students who don't have equitable access to resources and technology? So we'll just put that in there because we're responsible for all of them. And you can answer that question.
Okay, let's see, mailing materials. Oops, there's a couple more comments for the last question. We have to send work to school. Not well. We continue calling and providing hard copies of activities. Internet access is a challenge. Getting no responses from them. Super tough. Students have the option to use digital or non-digital. It is a huge challenge. Hard to get parents to respond. Phone calls, sometimes no response when we call. Email and conferencing. Delivering work with the meals.
That's a good one.
Yeah, parents working. So that's a challenge. Students knowing failure is not an option makes it hard. Yeah, some of the grading policies. It's a very challenging period, especially with language. We call parents and send emails, send out care package. Our biggest challenge was when the parent could not help the preschooler access the opportunities. So,
yeah.
Okay, gives you a little bit of an idea of the comments.
You guys are dealing with a lot, and I commend you for all the work and dedication that you have. Unfortunately, we still live in a world where people see early childhood as an option. And even some of our policies and procedures and systems that we have in place actually support that idea that you could stay at home until you get to first grade. You don't have to even go to kindergarten. It's not even a mandatory grade level. So a lot of that does support some of the parents' rationale, thinking that not being on the computer is not really that important. And then if they have other older children, it really they may put the older children on the computer and give them the time and just feel like this is too stressful for the younger child and it's really not important. So yeah, we are in a situation where we have to fight against a lot of different stereotypes. But for those responses that I heard, like delivering activities with the meals, that's amazing. That definitely supports Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, making sure that their needs are met. So you guys are doing amazing, amazing work. And if no one else has told you, which I'm sure that's not true, I am super, super proud to be on the same team with all of you as an educator. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers for you, if you have any. Hopefully I can provide the answer if you have any questions.
We have a few good questions, Dr. Giles, that came through as you were presenting. One of them was, what are your thoughts on posting the activities on Class Dojo or Seesaw and having the students do them in their own time?
I think that's really a good activity. I think that if it was me to make it a little bit more, I would take the same outcome for an activity and provide 3 different options and have them choose and give them an opportunity to choose and submit the one that they want to do, as long as they can tell me why they selected it. I think that's great. It's kind of it's almost like they get to self-select into the activities that they want. With the same goal, and then you get a little bit more understanding of why they chose the activity for the social emotional piece. But I think that's a good idea. But as long as you have some deadline for them, because they're still young, if we don't put some deadline in for them, then we're not giving them that true independence that they need. But I think
that's another question. Sorry. Another question was about students age between 3 and 5. This participant said that, expecting an honest engagement and authentic activities completed by the student is hard because it's mostly the parent. So do you have any suggestions for that particular age group?
Yes. So for 3 to 5-year-olds, we kind of like believe that you would do things that are more a part of that child's routine for authentic engagement, not having them do things that they wouldn't normally do in their daily routine. So make things 3 to 5, they eat every day. They brush their teeth, they wash their clothes, things of that nature. So I would try to make those activities be based on things that would be a normal part of their daily routine to get more engagement. Um, that, like how many bedrooms are in your house, like things like that, how many stairs, like stuff that, it doesn't take much. It's fun for the kid, but it doesn't become a burden to the parent, because that age group, it is very difficult, because they're only supposed to have 1 hour of online engagement, and then just actually have them take a picture and post with, or video record, not video record, but they can actually just do an audio recording. And kids will love it. And I think that if we could, the hard part would be getting the parents on board, but if they saw the simplicity in the activities, that may help. That because it's a part of something that they're already doing, and they don't feel like they have to do this grand gesture for the teacher, because we eat every day. We do certain things every day.
Okay. We had a question here about, as we transition to the summer, do you suggest we send home or emails for the emerging kindergartens, like send them packets, or just continue to use technology for learning?
I would actually do a combination of both. I am a firm believer that, as I stated during the presentation, that we will never be the same, and we will always use technology. And I think that technology is going to be a part of how we move forward and how we communicate. And I think that it will be more intentional. And so I know right now in the summer, if I was a kid, I probably would not want to see any technology. I would just want to run outside and swim and do things of that nature. But I would give some activities for online, and then I would do some what I would call authentic online pieces that are engaging for students, not like ABC Mouse, but something that is inquiry-based learning. And then the packet, because unfortunately, when they get back to school, they will be writing, they will be reading and using text and workbooks. So unfortunately, they need to have a balance. And I really, when I think about summer loss and summer regression, I really am worried about this group as we transition into the next academic year, of what could possibly happen with without so much time not being in the classroom and not having that structure. I'm really worried about that.
Okay, I think we have room for one more quick question, which is a good question. How would you teach our young children to wear masks and do social distancing?
Very good question. So for me, if I was able to teach it, so I'm not sure if you guys know, but they have allowed childcare centers to reopen if they've turned in their emergency forms to the governor and to DCFS. They can actually open back up, and that has been a question of how do we help children wear masks. And the policy that they put in place is any child age 2, folks, listen to me, it really hurts my heart, 2 years of age and up have to wear a mask. So to encourage young children to wear a mask, I think the best thing you can do is talk to them first about why we have to wear the mask. Let them play with the mask and design one. Children always have a more vested interest in something if they have something to do with the design or making of it. And so that would be one way to do it. And make sure that they understand and have stories that talk about how important it is to wear a mask, and act it out. Use props and puppets, like, make a video of make a video about it, and then allow them to design their own and do it. I think that is the best way to do it, and they'll be more involved and engaged in it. That's a very, very good question, and one that I'm sure that we're all going to have to address. But yeah, and I feel it is really difficult for 2-year-olds because they pull everything off. They take things off. So that will be a challenge.
Okay, well, at this point, we are coming to the end of our session. Thank you so very, very much, Dr. Giles, for an amazing presentation. We really appreciate all of the wonderful ideas, tips, suggestions, and information that you've provided. And thank you to our audience so much for your participation. We'd like to remind you that the session has been recorded and will be shared with you. Again, you will receive an email from us later today with your state certificate of completion, with the PowerPoint presentation, and a link to the recorded webinar. As soon as you exit the webinar today, we ask you to please complete the exit survey. It will pop up on your screen, so please take a few minutes to complete it. Your feedback is very, very important to us. Stay tuned for next week's final webinar of our spring webinar series, which will be focused on self-care, teacher self-care, teacher and staff self-care. Thank you again, everybody, for your participation, for being with us this morning. Stay safe and have a wonderful day. Bye now.